Hello guys, this is Nat Blue. Today we are going to react to the video that Dungeons and Dragons dropped about the new fighter for the 2024 Player's Handbook. And then I'll interject every so often with my opinions about some of the changes that they're making, some of the improvements, some things that I might not think are an improvement. I do believe that this Player's Handbook is available for pre-order right now. I think I'm probably going to get it, even if it's just to take the things out of it that I like about it so far. So we are just going to jump into this.
The fighter, in addition to being one of the most popular classes in 5th edition D&D, is also one of the oldest classes. This is the person who essentially you can put any weapon in their hand and they know how to use it, and they know how to use it well. And if you look at the new Player's Handbook, the fighter and I think the ranger, they are sort of neck and neck in just the number of brand new features that they get in this book.
Right.
All the baseline goodies are still there, extra attack and it increasing, action surge, etc. This is just how much that is brand new in the fighter.
Right.
I have really liked all of the artwork for this new Player's Handbook so far. Just quick interjection. I think that they did a great job with that.
That is being joined with the features that the class had before. First off, of course, weapon mastery, brand new. Also, fighters now get a feature called Tactical Mind, which allows them to expend uses of their second wind when they fail an ability check to roll a die, add it to that check, and try to turn their failure into a success. Now, we were able to introduce this new feature because we also enhanced Second Wind so that fighters can now use it more often than they used to be able to.
Right.
And as fighters go up in level, their number of Second Wind uses increases, which means not only do they now have more uses to use on their self-healing, which is what Second Wind could do previously, but now they can also use it on Tactical Mind to try to turn, again, failed ability checks into successful ones.
So I do really like that they're getting more second wind, because I feel like limiting it to once a day for the entirety of the fighter class is very restrictive, even if it does just heal. I think the Tactical Mind thing sounds pretty cool too. So I'm excited to see how that goes. Even if I don't want 2024 D&D, I don't even know what they're calling it at this point. They keep changing their mind. Even if I don't want it, I do think I might take that into my campaigns with having extra second wins.
And that's very much on theme with fighters. Like, they persevere, and it may not just be to like heal up and get into the fight again. It may be to like you're trying to grasp for something, or you're trying to do this one thing with the last bit of strength in you.
Absolutely. And also, Tactical Mind is part of our effort to give the fighter also some special capability in situations that might not be combat. Most of the fighters' abilities are naturally combat oriented. It's in the name.
Yeah.
They're all about fighting. But nonetheless, we, in every class, as we revisited it for the new Player's Handbook, made sure that every class had something that
Is that artwork for the new Player's Handbook? Because that's actually pretty cool. The gold dragon with the, looks like wizard, rogue, fighter, cleric sitting around. That's actually pretty sick.
They could bring to the table also outside combat. And so Tactical Mind is a big option there, again at level 2. At level 5, they get Tactical Shift. Now, this allows them, whenever they use their second wind as a bonus action to regain hit points, to also move up to half their speed without provoking opportunity attacks. We wanted fighters, as the battlefield tacticians, to have a bit of an easier time moving around the battlefield, especially when they're in danger. And so that's why this is connected to second wind, that, you know, those times where the fighter is like, uh-oh, we want the fighter to be able to tactically reposition themselves, whether they need to do that to save themselves or move themselves into a better position to protect their allies, because some fighters are built as tanks, but then other fighters are built as archers, as skirmishers. Part of the beauty of the class is that you can build a fighter to fill many different tactical roles.
I do like the extra movement without the opportunity attack. We'll see how the rest of the video goes. I feel like at some point it's making second wind a little bit too strong, but we'll see how it goes. I think this would be great, like a specific thing to the Battle Master or something. But I see how it could work with other fighters.
Level 9, they get Tactical Master. You can see a theme here, since each of these new features has the word tactical in it. We have, Tactical Mind, Tactical Shift, and now Tactical Master. Tactical Master at level 9 lets the fighter, whenever they are using a weapon and are using that weapon's mastery property, lets them replace that property when they strike with the weapon with the push, sap, or slow mastery properties, which basically means the fighter always, once they reach level 9, always has those 3 mastery properties in their pocket.
Yeah.
And so whatever mastery property is on the weapon they're using, they always know, okay, if in a pinch I need one of those other 3 mastery properties, I can invoke it. And this is a replacement of a feature we experimented with in Unearthed Arcana that was allowing fighters to completely switch which mastery properties were on their weapons. We found that not only was that not super popular in the UA series, but it was also on the back end in our development creating a number of headaches for the system down the line. So that is no longer present. Instead, we felt both in our development and in our playtesting, it was far more preferable and fun to just give the fighter these 3 properties that the fighter could just say, nope, I'm going to use this one now, regardless of what the mastery property is on the weapon that I'm using.
I do like this. However, I don't know how I feel about weapon mastery overall so far. So I've looked a little bit into it, just trying to figure out how this new system is going to work for D&D, this updated system. We might eventually do a video over that. I think Dungeons & Dragons has released a video on how weapon mastery works. And if that's the case, we might do a similar video to this, just reacting to the weapon mastery system, because I might be misunderstanding it. So far, I'm not a big fan of it. I think it overcomplicates things a little bit more than I would like for a martial class, but we'll look into that sometime.
And being obsessed with the Battle Master, all of those weapon mastery abilities for those weapons can stack and layer on to your battle maneuvers all at the same time.
Yes.
So there are some really juicy combinations. If you're a Battle Master, you're using a maneuver, you can use an additional effect from that weapon, and now you have this massive toolbox of combinations that you've never had before.
Exactly. So the Battle Master's mini game of deciding which maneuver to use at any point just became an even more intricate mini game, because you're figuring out which maneuver to use paired with which weapon mastery.
If you want to like stack, pushing an opponent a little bit with one of your maneuvers, and then also stacking the weapon mastery to push an opponent even further, you can get up to some really nasty business.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
At level 13, the fighter gets a feature that I've actually been wanting to give fighters for years, called Studied Attacks. And this gives the fighter advantage on their next attack roll against a target if they miss them. With this idea, again, of fighters being the battlefield masters, like they're sizing up their opponent.
Yeah.
And you can imagine it, the fighter more than anyone else, of like, well, I missed you this time, but I just figured out something about you, and so I'm gonna have a better chance of hitting you next time.
Right.
And you can see this sort of starting to snowball and can be a lot of fun.
I do really like that. That's a great one. So far, not a lot of misses, but we're only 7 minutes into the video, and it's a half-hour video, so I'm going to try not to interject too often. But I think that one's great.
Fighters then at level 19 also get a new feature that all classes now get at level 19 that replaces the ability score improvement that they had at that level, and it is the Epic Boon feature. And this is the feature that unlocks for fighters, as well as every other class who gets this feature, the ability to choose an Epic Boon feat. Now, the fighter, like everyone else, also has the option of choosing a non-Epic Boon feat at this level. It's just like when you choose, or rather when you're given ability score improvement, you have the option of taking that or another feat. Same here with Epic Boon. But I think you're going to want to choose the Epic Boon feat because the Epic Boon feats, they not only include an ability score increase in them, but that increase can go past the normal maximum of 20.
Yeah.
And they include abilities that really go beyond what feats can normally do. And there's a reason why these feats are not available until 19th level. Like one of them, just as an example, and it's particularly relevant to the fighter's interests, is one of the Epic Boon feats is called the Boon of Combat Prowess, which allows you, when you miss, to just decide you hit. And you can do this. You can do this only once per turn, but my goodness, is that good?
Yeah.
And the Epic Boon feats, there's another one where you now have True Sight, meaning within a certain range, you can see anyone who's invisible.
What their actual form truly is.
You can see through illusions. Really powerful. We have another Epic Boon where when you take the attack action or the magic action, hey, you can also teleport. So you can see how these Epic Boons, once you reach level 19, can really supercharge how your character functions as they near the end of a normal D&D character's career. Now,
Okay, Epic Boons sound cool. There was something weird here that I wanted to go back to. So that's what, like 9:20. This is a pedantic thing, but I'm just curious about it. There was artwork. This.
really
How did I miss that? This. Great artwork. Like I said, I think that so far, all of the reveals I've seen for this player's handbook have had amazing artwork. My confusion is, are they adding in a mechanic for like disabled characters? I love this artwork. I like how this wheelchair looks. It's pretty awesome. The person's holding a pistol. That's pretty awesome. I just don't think I've ever seen a D&D character in a wheelchair. And if they are adding something, I love that. But I wonder if this is just something that a DM would maybe homebrew.
these Epic Boons, once you reach level 19,
Because I've just never seen that.
can really supercharge how your character functions as they near the end of a normal D&D character's career. Now, I put it that way because we also include rules in the new player's handbook that if your DM wants you to keep playing at level 20, you can go beyond the power that characters normally have once they sort of reach the ceiling or reach the level cap. Because now, every time you hit a certain amount of XP, you can pick another one of these Epic Boon feats, or another feat if you so choose. Meaning if you play at level 20 long enough, you could conceivably get one of your scores all the way up to 30. Meaning that at that point, you are truly God tier.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's awesome.
Look, these are great concepts. I don't think a lot of DMs are going to play far into level 20. So I feel like the multiple epic boons thing is almost never going to come into account. To be completely honest, most of the D&D community, I think, would agree with me here. Most parties don't make it to 19. So I think overall, the epic boons are not going to be used as much as maybe Wizards of the Coast is expecting them to be, because a lot of games don't get up that high level. A lot of DMs don't want to DM that high of a level. Um, Play becomes very difficult after level 12. And what I mean by that is it gets very difficult to balance encounters. So some DMs don't even want to go that high because it just complicates things so much. So I think that these level 19 abilities are amazing. I love the idea of an epic boon. And it does make the characters feel like an all powerful being, which is great for that high of level because that's how they should feel. But I just feel like it's not really going to be utilized at all. That's like the wish spell. Most players don't ever get the wish spell because it's just such a high level thing. But we'll continue on with this.
And again, that epic boon goodness is something that every character is going to have access to. Now with the fighter, I'm going to loop all the way back to the beginning before we dive into subclasses to touch also on some enhancements in existing features. I already mentioned that Second Wind now has more uses than it used to have.
Right.
But also the baseline fighting style feature that fighters get has been enhanced. And it's been enhanced in several ways. First off, there are new fighting style options that weren't present in 2014. There's now blind fighting, interception, thrown weapon fighting, and unarmed fighting. Each of these made their debut in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, and they've now graduated into the player's handbook, and they have been adjusted to now be fully at home with all of the other options in this book. We've also improved the protection option that was present before, and you can also, and this is a biggie, you can also now change the fighting style that you chose
Right.
every time you gain a fighter level. It used to be that you would choose it and
That was it.
that was it for the rest of your career. We've now given the fighter the ability every time they level up to change their mind. They might decide, I've been more of an archer than a frontline warrior, and so I want to change what fighting style feat I'm using.
And that's something I also enjoy about Weapon Mastery as well, is that you mentioned several times that you can go through training drills and adjust.
Yes.
Yeah, you can train up on a different weapon and a different, yeah.
And that is
Okay, that idea makes that passable. I think in universe it would be difficult to explain how some fighters are able to use multiple different weapon fighting styles. But I do like the interviewer's explanation of in between levels they trained up that style, which I think that would make a little bit of sense. I'm one of those DMs where I expect that players are doing a little bit of training in downtime. So I think that's pretty easily explained.
a key piece of the fighter's weapon mastery feature, and the other weapon mastery features is exactly that. Yeah, that you pick the weapons that you unlock, but then you can change them.
Yeah.
And this is all about us giving players more ways to explore different parts of the game and not feel that they make a choice and they're stuck with it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Now, there are certain choices that, yeah, they're for the character's life, unless something extraordinarily magical alters something. Like, for instance, most characters' species will never change,
Right.
although, you know, they might be reincarnated, and that could certainly change their species. Similarly, most characters never change their class, although they might delve into another class via multiclassing. But within some of these big choices that usually remain true throughout a character's career, we've looked for ways to give people more avenues to explore different options in the game. In a way, the fighter, to me, finally is truly the sort of weapon master equivalent of the wizard in terms of flexibility.
Absolutely, yeah.
The wizard, who is not actually our biggest damage dealer when it comes to spells, but the wizard has the most versatility when it comes to spells.
Yeah.
And fighters now have that kind of versatility with weapon use, with tactical options. But we've also made it so that you get to determine how deeply you go into the amount of choice, because that's a big part of your subclass decision. And the 4 subclasses that are in the fighter represent not only 4 different thematic directions that a fighter can go in, but they also represent different levels of complexity, and in some ways, different levels of sort of mechanical idiosyncrasy. And this is something that we will return to when we talk about the other classes, because when we look at the classes, rather the subclasses that each class gets, and when we were choosing the 4 subclasses for every class in the new player's handbook, we were always looking for different levels of complexity, and then also different levels of idiosyncrasy, because we wanted to make sure that each subclass represented a different play style, a different theme, and a different level of complexity.
Let's delve into the subclasses. Fighter Battlemaster is one of my absolute favorites. They have a complexity to them that makes you feel like kind of a wizard.
And that is an identity that we have protected in the revised Battlemaster. There was actually an early version of the revised fighter where and I know actually there are many 5e fans who expected us to do this.
Right.
We considered taking the Battlemaster and turning its maneuver system into the baseline for the whole class.
Right.
And we actually spent quite a bit of time several years ago assuming that was the direction we were going in with the fighter. We, as you can see, backed away from that.
Yeah.
And the main reason we did so is we realized that would undermine our goal of providing different levels of complexity for people and different play styles within the fighter. Because even though there are a segment of fans, you included, who love the Battlemaster, there are also many fighter players who have no interest in playing the Battlemaster or having this whole array of maneuvers to manage. In many ways, I'm glad for the Battlemaster's sake that we did not absorb it into the base class, because it allowed us to protect the Battlemaster as the Battlemaster. So a big part of bringing the Battlemaster into the new PH was making sure that the maneuvers were all functioning as well as they could, not only in the context of the fighter and the Battlemaster, but also in the context of other revisions we'd done in the game. But then we also added in new maneuvers. So if people thought there were a lot before, well, there are even more.
Yeah.
Because now you have ambush, bait and switch, commanding presence, and tactical assessment. These maneuver options debuted in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, and we have brought them over now to the Player's Handbook to join the other options within the Battlemaster.
And again,
I have not read Tasha's. I really need to read Tasha's. I would use the excuse that I don't own the book. I own the book. I don't know why I haven't read Tasha's. I own the book. I just haven't gotten to it. I will say, this brings up my issue with the Battlemaster. And I think these guys have explained the issue pretty well. And Wizards of the Coast is aware of this. It's not like they don't know this is a problem for some people. Some people love this. I think there's too many options. I have played a fighter twice now. I'm playing a fighter right now. This is my second time playing a fighter. And my first GM heavily encouraged me to pick the Battlemaster. And I looked into it and went with the champion instead. It was my first character. And I looked over the Battlemaster and I'm like, there is no way I'm pulling this off. And I know what some people might say. It's not as complicated as every other class or all of the other classes. There's like the wizard is sometimes a little bit more complicated than this, but I do think it's nice to have other subclass options because I'm one of those people that doesn't like the battle master because of the complexity to it. So
I always liked commanding presence because this, again, fleshed out. Even though you are primarily, but maybe you could be a ranged or melee character, you have additional social options.
Exactly.
That makes sense for that character. Like it fleshes out the character experience that you're having.
That non-combat angle is also a part of some other tweaks we made inside the Battle Master. So in the Student of War feature, it used to be you got just a tool proficiency. Well, we now also allow you to get another skill proficiency from the fighter's skill list because we wanted the Battle Master to feel more well-rounded. And because we imagine the Battle Master as this sort of chess-playing tactical master who, yes, it's in the name, they are a master of battle, but also cunning and clever. And so that's why we added in that additional skill proficiency. We also completely redesigned the Battle Master's Know Your Enemy feature.
Okay.
We wanted it to have clearer use in battle. And so now, when you use it, and you have a limited number of uses per day, but when you use it, you are able to discern a creature's immunities, resistances, and vulnerabilities. Essentially, it's in the name, you know your enemy. You size them up, and you're able to figure out the types of damage that's going to do nothing to them, but then also you're going to discern their weaknesses.
Perfect.
I do think know your enemy is one of the better fighter abilities that is very underutilized. I have a battle master in one of my home games that never uses the know your enemy feat, even though it is such a good ability to have to know what weaknesses a monster might have or what resistances monster might have. So I do like that. I think if I played a battle master, I would definitely utilize that more than my player does.
So the champion has still the same core identity as before,
Such
having
cool art.
a greater chance of scoring critical hits than pretty much anyone else in the game. But we really wanted to bring a bit more oomph to the subclass so that it would not only continue to be fun for the people who love its more streamlined play style, but also so that it might appeal to even those of us who often like a bunch of tactical options, which is one of the reasons why in our playtests I spent so much time myself playing a champion because I wanted the champion to be at a place where I myself can say, I had a great time playing it.
Right.
And I can say that wholeheartedly, that I had some of my most fun in the last year and a half in our playtesting playing a champion fighter. So weapon mastery with the champion is really like wonderful spice added to a tight, streamlined base. Again, we still wanted to make sure that the champion retained its streamlined nature while getting a little more spice of its own, not relying entirely on weapon mastery to bring that spice, but to get some of its own. And so with that in mind, we redesigned the Remarkable Athlete feature, and it now does a couple of things. First, combining with the champion's greater chance of scoring critical hits, Remarkable Athlete has made it so that whenever the champion scores a critical hit, the champion can move a certain distance without provoking opportunity attacks. So this allows the champion perhaps to score a crit and fell a target, and then without having to use any of their regular move, start making their way toward their next target.
Right.
Or move to another tactically advantageous position on the battlefield. We've also made it so that Remarkable Athlete gives the champion advantage on strength athletics checks, but even better on initiative rolls. Because we view the champion as being this person who is relentlessly pursuing victory, and they are ready to fight. And there are only a few characters in the player's handbook who have this, once they reach a certain level, an always-on advantage on initiative. And the champion is one, the assassin is another, and the rogue, and then the barbarian class all up eventually gets it. This ability is not only fantastic on its own, because it simply means you have a better chance of acting first, or at least sooner, in any battle that you're participating in, but it has this.
Could you imagine having a champion, an assassin rogue, and a barbarian in the same party? Because that would start to get a little annoying, especially for the assassin rogue, who I think, correct me if I'm wrong, gets bonuses for going first in initiative. So if I was an assassin rogue and my fighter also has advantage, I would be a little frustrated. I think the only saving grace for the assassin rogue is that the dexterity for a rogue is normally higher than a fighter, but fighters could take dex weapons, right? So you could technically want a dex fighter. It's just not preferred. I mean, weird tangent to go into. Not a problem with the class. It would be just very frustrating to play an assassin rogue while somebody else plays a champion fighter or a barbarian, and somebody get initiative over you, although you have advantage.
An especially nice interaction with how surprise now works, because the surprise rules in the new player's handbook have been changed. Rather than there being a potential for certain combatants to simply be unable to act during the first round of a fight,
Cool art again, but is that like a pale orc? It looks like she has tusks. I love the illuminated sword too, though. That's pretty cool.
possibility that frankly ended up really unbalancing the game in certain circumstances, because the old surprise rules could very easily trivialize an entire encounter, and often way more so than they were intended to. It was really supposed to be sort of a narrative thing of, oh look, you got the jump on somebody, but causing another side to essentially spend the entire first round of a combat gawking would often mean, in some cases, why are we even having the fight? Like, the DM can just say, you won. And so we wanted there still to be the possibility of feeling like you have an edge, but we needed to defang how powerful surprise was. And so in the new rules, being surprised simply means you have disadvantage on your initiative roll, meaning you are likely to go after the people who surprised you, although it's not guaranteed. The reason why I'm bringing this up in relation to the champion is it means, because the champion always has advantage on their initiative rolls, even if they're surprised, they still don't have disadvantage. It just means their advantage is canceled by the disadvantage, meaning the champion, the assassin, and the barbarian are really hard to surprise, which is exactly what we want. We want these characters to
always be ready.
They are ready. They are ready to fight. Or in the case of the assassin, they're ready to get you.
They don't want.
Okay, I love the changes to surprised. I might implement that right now before any of this stuff even takes effect, because I do not like how surprised works in 5e. Like they said, if your players surprise somebody, there's a good chance that they just win the fight right then. If an enemy surprises somebody, there's a good chance that they down someone before combat even starts. And that is one of the worst feelings as a player. So I think this version of surprised, where the surprised party gets disadvantage on initiative rolls is great.
They don't want to fight. They just
Yeah,
want
no.
they want to end the fight.
Yeah, the assassin wants the fight to end before it even starts.
It's already over. Yeah.
So there are some other enhancements in the champion. The additional fighting style feature that used to be at level 10 has moved down to level 7.
That pirate is
And then
sick.
at level 10, there's now a brand new feature. It's called Heroic Warrior. And every time the champion starts their turn in combat and doesn't have heroic inspiration, they get it automatically.
Oh wow.
And remember, the new heroic inspiration lets you re-roll any die roll. So the champion could use this to re-roll their d20 roll in the hope of fishing for crits, but they could also use it to re-roll a damage die or some other die that they're using on their turn.
Hopefully, this feature for the fighter would mean that somebody uses inspiration. I hand out inspiration in my group, and it's very often unused. People just forget they have it. So, hopefully, adding it into the subclass will make people use inspiration a little bit more. So, hopeful for that at least.
What this means is that a champion, every turn in combat, has a re-roll in their pocket, which, again, simple,
Yeah.
but potentially very effective. Finally, their level 18 feature, Survivor, now, in addition to its other functions that it had before, also gives the champion advantage on death saving throws, and they essentially gain their expanded crit range that they have on attack rolls also on death saves. And here's what I mean by that. Now, when they're making death saving throws, if they roll an 18, 19, or 20, when they have this survivor feature, they gain the benefit of having rolled a 20. They basically, they can roll a critical death saving throw with a bigger range, since that's also their theme with their attack rolls, meaning it is really hard to keep a champion down.
And what does a critical death saving throw do?
So when you roll a 20 on a death saving throw, you gain a hit point, which means you stop dying.
Yeah.
So that's the best thing that can happen to you, because that erases all of the death saving throw failures you might have accrued up to that point, and then you have the potential to get back into the fight.
Lots of people want to play a fighter. A lot of people want.
I do like that for the uniqueness of it. So I don't think this is something that happens very often. I know there's some features in different classes that give you advantage on death saving throws and stuff like that. But I do really like the improved criticals on death saves. It makes the fighters seem a little bit harder to get rid of, which I think is a big part of the fighter class.
I'll play a wizard, but there's always been something like, I want a little bit of magic with me having a sword, having a longbow, just a little touch of magic, and that's what the Eldritch Knight gives you.
Yeah, and the Eldritch Knight is tapping into that exactly. It's meant to be not only there for the person who wants the fighter mage, but maybe even for somebody who played original D&D where elf was a class option that mixed spellcasting and martial ability, and that is exactly what the Eldritch Knight is. The Eldritch Knight retains, its core abilities from 2014, the spellcasting combined with the abilities of the fighter, and the Eldritch Knight in the quartet of classes, rather subclasses, in the fighter, is the first of two, the other one being the Psi Warrior, that are for people who want the fighter mixed with something else.
Yeah.
So the champion and the battle master, they represent sort of the core fighter, but at different ends of the complexity spectrum. The Eldritch Knight and the Psi Warrior, they're instead on a different axis. They're about taking the core shtick of the fighter and combining it with, in the case of the Eldritch Knight, spellcasting, and in the case of the Psi Warrior, psionic power. And they give you two very different routes to follow, also mechanically, because the Eldritch Knight relies on spells mechanically, while the Psi Warrior relies on psionic energy dice and using unique abilities that are built into the Psi Warrior subclass. Now, in the Eldritch Knight, we've made several enhancements to take this popular subclass and make it even better. So one of the things that people will notice right away if they've played the Eldritch Knight before is we no longer have any School of Magic restrictions in the Eldritch Knight. The Eldritch Knight, as well as the Rogue's Arcane Trickster subclass, used to have School of Magic restrictions in them when it came to your spell selection, and we have removed the restrictions from both of those subclasses because we wanted you to have more freedom to build the type of warrior mage you wanted to build with the Eldritch Knight, or in the case of the Arcane Trickster, the type of rogue mage that you wanted to create. The Eldritch Knight also is helpful for the person who maybe does not want to dive into multi-classing, but again wants a little bit of the chocolate mixed with their peanut butter.
Right.
That is the warrior mage. Now, in addition to that, we've also given the Eldritch Knight the ability to use an arcane focus, a detail that was missing in 2014. And then we've redesigned both War Magic and Improved War Magic. Previously, War Magic relied on you taking a bonus action to gain its benefit. Instead, you can now, with War Magic, take the attack action and replace one of your attacks with casting a cantrip. And then Improved War Magic, which also now does not rely on a bonus action, now lets you, when you take the attack action, replace two of your attacks to cast a level 1 or level 2 spell. So what this does is even better integrate the two parts of the Eldritch Knight's identity, their fighterliness and their spellcasting abilities, by taking the spellcasting abilities and really allowing them to take advantage of one of the fighter's main features relative to anyone else in the game, and that is simply the number of attacks that fighters get. Because fighters, with their extra attack feature, gain more attacks than anyone else in the game. The one exception being the monk. The monk does not get all their extra attacks through extra attack. Instead, it's through various unarmed strike shenanigans with their bonus action. And of course, it's the good kind of shenanigans.
I do like the improvements to War Magic. I think it helps free up stuff like Second Wind, which is great. I've never played an Eldritch Knight. I've looked into them, and I just think there's normally better options. Jeez, I promise I can talk, guys. I would rather just play straight Knight or a straight up spellcaster. I think Eldritch Knight, by combining both, sometimes loses the flair of one. But improving War Magic might help with that. That way you can use some of the other fighter abilities like he was just saying.
So this allows, in the Eldritch Knight, the ability for the fighter to integrate their spellcasting into the regular attack routine and then frees up their bonus action for other uses, so that it isn't being devoured by their subclass's main shtick.
That's what's new with Eldritch Knight. Let's talk about the Psi Warrior.
So the Psi Warrior first appeared in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything and is a way for you to take the fighter foundation and add to it this character who manipulates the battlefield with the powers of their mind. And this includes various telekinetic abilities, being able to hurl things around with your mind, as well as defensive capabilities, all of which is handled by using psionic energy dice that represent your character's psionic energy. And the subclass, for anyone who has played it before, will feel very similar. And the main changes that we've made to it in integrating it into the new player's handbook has largely been to just reword things, reframe some things so that it fits naturally in the context of the new rulebook and in the context of the broader fighter class.
So you've given the fighter a lot of new things.
Yes.
So in terms
Are they not going to talk about the Psy Warrior any more than that? They said for people who are familiar with it, who have played it before, it will be very similar to what it already plays like. What about the people that haven't played it before? Because I feel like I'm missing information here now. I've never played a Psionic Warrior or a Psi Warrior. I don't know if it's even called a Psionic Warrior. I have read up on it. I know a little bit. I know the basics. I'm not a fan of the idea. I think it would be cool for somebody that's doing like this person was touched by a great old one or something kind of backstory. But I think there are better options for fighters. I think there are also better psionic options. I think there's a psionic option for monk, or there used to be, maybe. But I know there's stuff that focuses on psychic damage and everything for like the bard, warlock, maybe the sorcerer. So I feel like maybe this wasn't necessary. We only have a minute left of this video. Less than a minute. More like 45 seconds. And I've realized something. We're losing the Echo Knight. So right now I'm playing an Echo Knight. We're losing other subclasses. I know there's the Purple Dragon Knight. The Arcane Archer, I think, is a fighter subclass. But we're losing the Echo Knight. And I think the Echo Knight is one of the best fighters I've ever read about, let alone played. And I'm only level 4 right now in my campaign. I already love having an Echo. I think it's amazing. I think the reason we're probably losing it, and I hate to admit this, is because the balance for the Echo Knight is not the best. It is an incredibly powerful class in the fact that you get so many attacks. I think the saving grace to the Echo Knight from a DM standpoint is that the Echo only has 1 hit point and I think 16 AC. So pretty much if a monster targets the Echo's gone. I think as somebody who's currently playing it, the balance to that is that it is a what do they call that? An action economy thing, where even if your Echo gets destroyed the first round you summon it, and the Echo doesn't get to make an action or teleport to swap with you kind of thing, it is still taking action economy away from a monster. That monster had to use an attack to destroy the Echo Knight. So I don't mind having 1 hit point on the Echo. But I am sad that it's not going to be officially in the new player's handbook. I bet there's still going to be people that are playing it with 5e rules because it's supposed to be backwards compatible. So the class isn't gone. I just wish it had stayed around in this new edition, even if they had to nerf it a little bit to deal with how many attacks the Echo Knight can make, because it's a lot by high levels.
dramatic improvements and changes, and a lot more to do. That's fantastic. The new Player's Handbook is available for pre-order right now on D&D Beyond. You can find that link in the video description, and you can also find the new core rulebooks bundle for pre-order, both physical and digital. Thank you so much for watching. We have a ton of video content coming out about the new Player's Handbook and all the new core rulebooks,
So there is a weapon mastery video that we can dive into soon. But this video has gotten a lot longer than I expected to because this was a 34-minute YouTube video that we covered. So Adding commentary kind of made that a lot longer than I expected it to be, which is fine. But overall, I think the changes to the fighter so far in the next edition are great. I really like most of it. There's some things I'm concerned about, but we'll see how those go. I think the champion is still going to be a great class. I think there's been some improvements to the battle master that will be great. It sounds like the uh, Eldritch Knight has improved. Um, I don't know if I'll use it still. Like I said, I don't know how I feel about playing a magic knight instead of just playing a wizard or a fighter. Um, but I mean, it sounds better. It sounds like you can use fireball, which I don't know if they can already use fireball, but opening up the other schools of magic will definitely give some bigger options. I'm sure that the spell level and stuff doesn't go as high for the Eldritch Knight. I'm sure it's like a secondary spellcaster. Um, but I'm sure that will still be great. The Psy Warrior could be cool. I haven't looked into it much. I'm not a huge fan of all of the psionic classes that have been introduced. I think it's just for some people, I'm sure the flavor is amazing. I'm sure for some campaigns, the flavor would be amazing, but it's just not my cup of tea. So, other than that, I'm excited for these changes. I'm going to take a couple of them. Like I said, I might just immediately take the surprise mechanic because I really like that. I do also really like the extra uses of second wind. So I'm excited to see how that rolls out. I'm not going to use that yet until I see how the handbook recommends it getting used because I don't want to overpower the characters, especially without adjusting my monster stat blocks and everything to account for the fact that the fighter might be up in combat a little bit more. Other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. So if you have comments on the fighter changes, please leave a comment. I really want to have discussion about this kind of stuff. I don't do a lot of D&D content on my channel, but that is kind of my biggest hobby right now. Other than playing video games, I play a lot of D&D. I consume a lot of D&D content. I watch a lot of videos on how to do things in D&D. So if you guys liked this video, please leave a like. I love the engagement. Um, if you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to the channel. I plan on going over the videos that Dungeons and Dragons has been releasing. I hope that's not a copyright issue. I feel like this is fair use because I am adding commentary onto it, but I'm still very new to YouTube. So hopefully this is not a copyright issue. If it is, I am sorry to Wizards of the Coast, but I just want to talk about the changes you guys are making. When the new handbook comes out, I'll probably buy it. I really want that cool looking cover with the dragon and the players around it and everything. But if you want to see these videos as they are released, you can hit that notification bell. Other than that, I hope you guys are having a great day. And until next time, peace.